You will not believe who I accidentally sat next to at the gala tonight. The chandeliers above glittered like 1,000 tiny stars, casting warm golden light over the polished marble floors, while soft classical music floated through the air, mingling with the quiet hum of conversation. Lily Carter clutched her clutch bag a little too tightly, feeling the leather straps dig into her fingers as she tried to calm the rapid thumping of her heart. The gala hall was vast, tables adorned with crystal glasses, fine china, and elegant floral arrangements. She had rehearsed her polite smile and small talk in the taxi, but as she stepped into the room, her confidence wavered, and a wave of self-consciousness washed over her. Every dress sparkled, every gesture seemed refined, and Lily could not help but feel painfully ordinary in her simple navy dress and worn heels. Taking a deep breath, she scanned the room for the table number Jenny, her best friend, had told her she should sit at. Table 17. Lily muttered to herself, her voice barely audible above the clinking of silverware and the quiet laughter of the guests. As she weaved through the rows of tables, she spotted a man sitting alone at a corner, sharply dressed in a fitted charcoal suit with neatly combed dark hair, focused on his phone. He looked approachable yet commanding in presence, and without thinking, Lily slid into the chair across from him, smiling nervously. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "I'm Lily. Nice to meet you." The man looked up, startled, his deep brown eyes locking on hers for a brief moment before a polite, slightly confused smile tugged at his lips. Hello, Lily," he replied. She mistook his hesitation for shyness and nodded enthusiastically, trying to fill the silence with small talk, unaware that she had just seated herself at the wrong table. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you cannot miss. The man glanced down at his phone, reading a text he had just received that canceled an important meeting. His gaze flicked back to Lily, and he decided to play along, sensing something genuine in her nervous chatter. "Right, blind dates or something else," he said quietly, his voice calm and warm, easing some of her tension. Lily laughed softly, the sound almost blending with the gentle music as she tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. They began to talk, sharing small anecdotes about their days, the conversation flowing naturally despite the initial confusion. Lily described her part-time work at the local art studio, her struggles paying the rent, and the little dreams she clung to after long days. He listened, nodding occasionally, but said very little about himself, offering only a vague response about working in technology, which only piqued her curiosity further. The soft light from the chandeliers highlighted the earnestness in her eyes, the subtle smile on his lips revealing a hint of amusement and intrigue. The air between them was charged with a quiet tension, a mixture of curiosity, embarrassment, and something unspoken that neither of them could quite name. As the waitstaff moved past, refilling glasses and clearing plates, Lily felt a strange sense of serendipity, as if a simple mistake had created a moment she was not ready to let go of. She did not know it yet, but this accidental seating would mark the beginning of a connection that neither the gala nor their social positions could predict. After leaving the gala, Lily could not shake the memory of the man she had sat beside. The soft golden light, the hum of conversation, the fleeting connection they had shared all played over and over in her mind. Her apartment was small, the walls painted a muted beige, and the air smelled faintly of old books and fresh coffee. She kicked off her worn heels, rubbing her aching feet, and sank into the couch, the sketchbook she carried pressed against her chest. She flipped through the pages, her drawings of imagined art studios and colorful cityscapes filling the room with life she longed to have. Despite her exhaustion from the gala and the long walk home, her thoughts kept returning to the man in the charcoal suit, his warm, calm demeanor, the faint smile that had tugged at the corner of his lips. She wondered what it would have been like if she had been seated at the correct table, if she would have noticed him at all. Meanwhile, across town, Daniel Hayes reclined in his penthouse suite, the city lights twinkling like scattered jewels across the skyline. He sipped from a glass of water, his mind unsettled by the encounter with the young woman at the gala. He could not explain why he felt a sudden pull, a curiosity that went beyond mere attraction or social politeness. Her earnestness had disarmed him, her nervous laughter lingering in his mind like a soft melody. Daniel leaned back, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word of their conversation, the way she had fidgeted with her hands, the way she had looked at him with a mixture of embarrassment and openness. For hours, he found himself sketching her face in his notebook, careful to preserve the details of her expression, the intensity of her eyes, the subtle tension in her shoulders. He knew he would have to see her again, though he had no idea how to make that happen without seeming too forward or intrusive. The next morning, Lily awoke early, sunlight spilling through the narrow blinds, illuminating the modest apartment. She brewed a cup of coffee, the aroma filling the tiny kitchen, and tried to distract herself by organizing her sketches and letters from clients at the art studio, where she worked part-time. Yet her mind kept wandering back to Daniel, to the way he had listened, the faint glimmer of amusement in his eyes, the sense that he had seen something genuine in her that no one else did. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that she was just an ordinary woman in a world full of glittering events and influential people. At the same time, Daniel was already at his office, reviewing proposals and financial reports, but his focus was fractured, thoughts drifting continually to Lily and the unexpected connection they had shared. He found himself hoping to see her again, even if it was just by chance. Back at Lily's apartment, she glanced out the window at the bustling city below, wondering if the universe might somehow bring them together once more. She thought of the soft music at the gala, the ambient chatter, the gentle glow of the chandeliers, and a faint smile crept onto her face. She knew, deep down, that something significant had begun, even though she could not yet name it. That evening, Lily returned to the art studio, arranging the canvases and paints, trying to focus on the work at hand. Yet every brushstroke and every sketch seemed to echo the memory of Daniel's smile, the casual way he had engaged with her despite the formal surroundings. The city was alive outside, taxis honking, pedestrians hurrying along the sidewalks, and lights flickering in the windows of office towers. She felt a strange anticipation, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for what might come next. The realization that a simple mistake at a gala could lead to such a profound stir of emotions left her both anxious and excited. She walked slowly to the window, watching the sunset turn the skyline into shades of orange and pink, imagining Daniel in his office, perhaps looking at the same sunset, and for a brief moment, she allowed herself to hope. The memory of his gentle laughter, his calm demeanor, and the subtle intelligence in his gaze stayed with her as she prepared for the day ahead, a quiet certainty forming that their paths were not finished crossing, that the story had only just begun. The next morning, Lily woke to the sound of city traffic filtering through her narrow apartment window, the hum of taxis and early morning chatter a stark contrast to the quiet warmth of the gala from the night before. She moved slowly, stretching her arms above her head, feeling the tension in her shoulders from the heels and the long walk home. Her modest kitchen smelled faintly of brewing coffee, and she poured herself a cup, letting the steam rise to meet her face. The room was bathed in soft morning light, casting elongated shadows across the worn wooden floor. She tried to focus on preparing for a part-time shift at the art studio, organizing canvases and tidying brushes, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Daniel Hayes, the man with the calm eyes and subtle smile, the man she had met by accident at the gala. Each memory of their conversation, each small laugh or gesture played over in her mind, leaving her with a mixture of excitement and anxiety she had not felt in years. She wondered who he really was, why he seemed to notice the little things about her, why his presence had left such an imprint on her heart. Across town, Daniel was already in his sleek office, the morning sun reflecting off the glass walls and casting sharp angles across the polished mahogany desk. He was reviewing proposals and checking emails, but the numbers and contracts blurred as his mind replayed the evening's encounter with Lily. Her open, genuine way of speaking, the nervous fidgeting with her hands, The sparkle of curiosity in her eyes had pierced through the routine and artificiality of his world. He leaned back in his chair, letting out a long sigh, a flicker of a smile forming on his lips as he recalled the way she had laughed at his light-hearted comments and how natural it had all felt despite the formal setting. Lily spent the morning walking to the studio, the city air crisp, her coat pulled tightly around her. She navigated through the crowd of commuters, each person rushing with purpose, yet she felt a strange sense of anticipation, as if something in the universe had shifted, nudging her toward a moment she could not yet foresee. As she entered the small studio, the smell of paint and turpentine greeted her, a comforting familiarity that contrasted sharply with the glittering grandeur of the gala. She arranged canvases and prepared materials for the day, yet every movement carried a subtle restlessness, a hope that somehow she would encounter Daniel again. Back in his office, Daniel found himself compelled to look through the guest list from the gala, his fingers tracing the names, lingering on the details of the tables and seating arrangements, trying to pinpoint the moment where he might cross paths with Lily once more. He considered calling, hesitated, and ultimately decided against it, preferring to let fate unfold naturally, curious to see if the connection they had sparked would continue. Meanwhile, Lily chatted briefly with her coworkers, though her mind was elsewhere, replaying snippets of their conversation, the way he had listened with interest and the subtle hints of warmth beneath his formal exterior. The hours passed with a slow rhythm, each brushstroke and sketch becoming a meditation on possibility, a quiet reflection on how a simple accident could create a ripple effect capable of touching lives in ways neither of them yet understood. As evening approached, Lily stepped out for a short walk, the sun low in the sky, painting the city in hues of gold and amber. She paused at the corner, watching the streetlights flicker to life, and allowed herself a small, tentative smile, feeling the thrill of anticipation for the day when she might see Daniel Hayes again, and wondering if he too was thinking of her with the same quiet longing. The following afternoon, Lily stepped out of the small art studio into the bustling city streets, the scent of rain lingering in the warm air from a light drizzle earlier. Her canvas tote swung gently at her side, the soft clatter of her worn boots against the pavement blending with the murmur of traffic and the occasional honk from passing taxi. She walked with a sense of purpose, though her mind was tangled with thoughts of Daniel Hayes, the man from the gala whose calm presence had lingered in her memory like a delicate echo. She found herself wandering toward a quiet corner cafe, a place she often stopped at when she needed a moment to think and collect her scattered sketches. Pushing open the glass door, the warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries enveloped her, and she breathed deeply, the familiar comfort grounding her racing thoughts. As she approached the counter to order a latte, she noticed a familiar figure sitting alone near the window, head slightly bowed over a tablet, fingers tapping in a steady rhythm. Her breath caught for a moment, heart pounding against her ribcage. Daniel was here, and he looked different in the casual daylight, not the formal lighting of the gala, softer, more approachable, yet still exuding a quiet confidence that made her stomach flutter. She hesitated, considering turning back, but something inside urged her forward. Gathering courage, she stepped toward his table. Daniel glanced up just as she reached the chair across from him, his eyes widening in recognition, a brief flicker of surprise passing over his face before settling into a gentle smile. "Hello again," he said, his voice low and inviting, as if the words carried an unspoken question of whether this encounter was meant to be. Lily offered a tentative smile, sliding into the seat. "Hi, Daniel," she replied softly, a mixture of nervousness and excitement threading her tone. The cafe was quiet, save for the soft clinking of cups and the distant hum of a coffee grinder. They exchanged pleasantries, both acutely aware of the electricity of familiarity mingled with newness. Lily spoke of her day at the studio, describing the people she had met, the canvases she had prepared, and the fleeting moments of inspiration that kept her going. Daniel listened intently, occasionally nodding, asking, thoughtful questions that made her feel seen and heard in a way few people ever had. He spoke sparingly about his own world, offering glimpses into his work in technology, the challenges he faced managing a large team, and the delicate balance between professional obligations and personal passions. Each word was carefully measured, revealing just enough to intrigue her without overstepping the boundaries of their casual encounter. Time seemed to stretch, the minutes folding into one another as they talked, a shared rhythm forming between their gestures, glances, and smiles. The sunlight through the large window illuminated the subtle contours of their faces, casting a soft glow that made the moment feel suspended outside of ordinary time. Lily felt a warmth bloom in her chest, a quiet certainty that their meeting was no longer accidental, that the serendipity of the gala had woven a thread between their lives that was pulling them closer together. Daniel, for his part, was struck by the ease with which she shared her thoughts, the authenticity of her laughter, and the earnestness in her expressions. He found himself wanting to prolong the conversation, to know more, to see where this unexpected connection might lead. As they lingered over their drinks, neither wanting to break the fragile magic of the encounter, a soft chime from the cafe door signaled another patron entering, a gentle reminder that the world beyond this small oasis continued on its busy path. They both paused, eyes meeting with a mixture of hesitation and anticipation, silently acknowledging that this second chance meeting was more than coincidence, and that the story unfolding between them was only just beginning. The weekend arrived with a gentle warmth that made the city streets feel almost inviting, a soft breeze rustling the leaves along the sidewalks as Lily made her way toward the local park she often visited for inspiration. Her tote bag was heavier than usual, filled with sketchbooks, pencils, and a small collection of watercolors she had been experimenting with during late nights at the studio. She found her favorite bench beneath an old oak tree, the sun filtering through the branches and casting dappled patterns across the ground. Sitting down, she opened her sketchbook, letting her fingers brush across the blank pages before selecting a pencil and beginning to draw. The park was lively but not crowded. Joggers passed by, children laughed on the playground, and a street musician played a soft melody on a violin, the notes weaving through the air and blending with the distant sounds of the city. Lily was absorbed in her work, the world around her fading as she sketched the details of the tree, the play of light, and the textures of the ground. Then, almost without warning, a shadow fell across her page, and she looked up to see Daniel standing a few feet away, hands casually tucked into the pockets of his tailored blazer, a curious smile on his face. He had chosen to find her, guided by the memory of their cafe encounter and the inexplicable pull he felt toward her. Lily felt her heart skip a beat, and a warm flush rose to her cheeks. "Hi, Daniel," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, though it betrayed a hint of surprise and excitement. He nodded in greeting, his smile gentle, as if he had been expecting to find her here. "Hello, Lily," he replied, and for a moment, they simply regarded each other, letting the familiarity of their previous meetings settle comfortably between them. He crouched slightly, peering at her sketchbook, his eyes scanning the lines and shapes she had drawn. "Your work is incredible," he said, his tone sincere, and Lily felt a shiver of both pride and embarrassment. "Thank you," she whispered, turning a page to show him a detailed sketch of the oak tree, the sunlight carefully rendered across the bark and leaves. Daniel leaned in, pointing out small details, the texture, the shading, and she felt a rush of connection, the shared appreciation of her art bridging the gap between their worlds. They talked for what felt like hours, discussing her inspirations, her aspirations to one day open a small gallery, and his own experiences managing teams and projects that demanded both precision and creativity. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by laughter, thoughtful silences, and the occasional curious glance at passers-by. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting longer shadows across the park, Lily noticed a small folded piece of paper sticking out from the side of her sketchbook. Curious, she opened it to find a note in Daniel's handwriting. "I thought you might like to remember this moment. It read, a gentle reminder of their time together and the beginnings of something neither had anticipated. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with surprise and gratitude, and he merely nodded, the quiet sincerity in his expression saying more than words ever could. The warmth of the sun, the soft music of the violin, and the comfort of shared presence made the moment feel suspended in time, a pause in the chaotic pace of their lives. Lily realized that the accidental seating at the gala had led to this unexpected connection, a serendipitous meeting that was slowly growing into something meaningful. Daniel, feeling equally captivated, suggested a walk through the park, and together they wandered along the winding paths, the conversation continuing seamlessly, each story revealing more about their hopes, fears, and the lives they led outside the gilded halls of galas and offices. It was a simple day, yet charged with an extraordinary sense of possibility, a quiet unfolding of trust and curiosity that promised more encounters, more shared moments, and perhaps the beginning of a story that neither Lily nor Daniel could have imagined when she had first sat at the wrong table. The following evening, Daniel invited Lily to meet him at a quiet rooftop garden he often used to escape the intensity of the city, a place where the air was cooler, scented faintly with jasmine, and the skyline stretched endlessly, glittering with lights. She arrived just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in rich hues of orange and violet, the golden hour bathing the garden in a soft, magical glow. Daniel was already there, leaning casually against the wrought iron railing, his gaze sweeping over the city before settling on her. He smiled, a warmth in his expression that immediately eased the nervous tension in her chest. "Hi, Lily," he said, his voice steady yet inviting. She returned the smile, feeling a curious mixture of anticipation and relief as she approached. "Hello, Daniel," she replied softly, adjusting the strap of her tote bag over her shoulder. They began to walk along the cobblestone paths of the garden, the distant hum of traffic a muted background to the quiet intimacy of the space. As they strolled, Daniel asked her about her sketches, his interest genuine, his questions thoughtful, showing a level of attention that made her feel truly seen. Lily described her favorite techniques, the inspiration behind her latest pieces, and the way colors and textures could convey emotions words often could not. Daniel listened intently, nodding, occasionally offering insights or subtle observations that sparked a new line of thought for her, making the conversation feel like a collaborative exploration rather than an interview or casual chat. The wind played gently with her hair, and she laughed when a stray strand fell across her face, brushing against her cheek. Daniel reached over without thinking, tucking it back behind her ear with a careful, almost reverent gesture. Lily felt a flutter in her stomach, a mix of surprise and delight that made her cheeks warm. They paused near a small fountain, the water sparkling in the fading sunlight, and Lily noticed a tiny notebook sticking out from Daniel's jacket pocket. "Is that yours?" she asked, curiosity shining in her eyes. Daniel reached for it, his fingers brushing hers for a brief moment, sending an unexpected thrill through both of them. "It is," he said, offering her a gentle smile. She tilted her head, intrigued. "May I see?" she asked hesitantly. He handed it to her, and as she flipped through the pages, she realized it was filled with sketches and notes, small observations about the city, designs, and ideas that mirrored the careful attention she had noticed in his demeanor. It was intimate, yet not intrusive, a glimpse into the world he rarely shared with anyone. Lily felt a sense of closeness she had not anticipated, as if their accidental meeting at the gala had set off a chain of events bringing them to this exact moment. They continued to walk through the garden, speaking of dreams, aspirations, and the subtle fears that accompanied them. Daniel shared more about his life as a CEO, the responsibilities and pressures, yet he did so in a way that was honest without boasting, revealing glimpses of vulnerability that made Lily see him as a person rather than a title. As night fell, lanterns along the paths flickered to life, casting a soft glow that reflected off the leaves and water, creating a serene, almost magical ambience. They stopped to take in the view of the city below, the glittering lights stretching in every direction, and Daniel turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "I'm glad I found you again," he said quietly. Lily looked up, her eyes meeting his, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. "Me too," she whispered, a shy but sincere acknowledgment of the connection that had begun to grow between them. The breeze carried a sense of anticipation, a promise of more moments to come, and both of them felt the unspoken understanding that their story was unfolding in a way neither had planned, yet both were eager to see where it would lead. The next morning, Daniel woke before the sun, the soft glow of dawn spilling across his office, casting long shadows over the neatly arranged papers and polished surfaces. He sat at his desk, a cup of black coffee steaming beside his laptop, but his attention was not on the work waiting for him. Instead, his mind replayed the previous evening in the rooftop garden, the way Lily had spoken about her sketches, her dreams, and the quiet determination that radiated from her even in casual conversation. He opened a notebook he kept for thoughts that were too personal for anyone else to see, jotting down fleeting impressions, small details about her smile, the tilt of her head, and the gentle way she had examined his own sketches. He reflected on the reasons he had kept his identity partially hidden when they first met, remembering past experiences where people had treated him differently once they knew he was the chief executive officer of a successful technology firm. He wanted to protect the authenticity of their interaction, to ensure that Lily was drawn to him for who he was, not for his title or wealth. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime from his phone, a reminder of the morning meeting with his team. He took a deep breath, closing the notebook carefully, and set out for the office, carrying a subtle anticipation of seeing Lily again later in the day. Meanwhile, Lily arrived at the studio, the soft morning light reflecting off her sketches and the pale blue walls, bringing warmth to the small space. She moved through her routine, organizing materials, greeting colleagues, and preparing for the upcoming workshop with students interested in learning about painting techniques. Despite the busyness of the day, her thoughts returned repeatedly to Daniel, to the unexpected connection that had begun to grow and the quiet pull that made her heart quicken each time she imagined his presence. As the afternoon progressed, she packed her tote with sketches for a potential client meeting, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. She stepped outside, the city alive with movement, the warm breeze carrying faint scents of blooming flowers and freshly brewed coffee from nearby cafes. Daniel, having finished his morning meetings, decided to leave the office and take a detour on his way back to the studio, a subtle hope guiding his steps. When he arrived at the studio, he paused outside, observing Lily arranging her sketches on the display table. He watched her focus intently, the sunlight highlighting the determination in her expression, and felt a growing admiration for her passion and dedication. He entered quietly, greeting her with a gentle hello, and Lily looked up, her face lighting with surprise and a small, delighted smile. They spoke casually at first, discussing her current projects, but gradually their conversation deepened, moving into shared aspirations, challenges, and reflections on how their lives had brought them to this point. Daniel found himself revealing more about his own experiences, the pressures and responsibilities that came with leading a company, and the careful choices he made to balance professional duties with personal growth. Lily listened attentively, her eyes bright with curiosity and empathy, offering insights and thoughts that surprised him with their perceptiveness. Time passed unnoticed, the studio quiet except for the occasional rustle of paper and the soft murmur of conversation, as the two of them became increasingly absorbed in each other's presence. Daniel felt a quiet thrill at being able to connect with someone who saw beyond his title, while Lily sensed a growing trust and understanding in a person who had seemed initially distant and unapproachable. As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow across the studio, Daniel offered to walk her back to her apartment, a gesture that Lily accepted with a mix of anticipation and calm excitement. Together, they stepped into the evening air, the city lights beginning to flicker on, and walked side by side, the gentle rhythm of their steps reflecting the unfolding harmony between them, both aware that their accidental meeting at the gala was now transforming into something far more significant and meaningful. The next morning, Lily woke with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension, sunlight spilling through her blinds and illuminating the small apartment in a soft golden glow. She brewed her coffee and sat at the narrow kitchen table, sketchbook open, yet her focus was fragmented, thoughts drifting repeatedly to Daniel and the growing connection that had begun to weave itself between them. Despite the excitement, a shadow of worry lingered, a reminder of the financial strain she faced and the challenges of pursuing her dream amidst a world that seemed intent on reminding her of her limitations. Across town, Daniel was already in his office, reviewing emails and reports, but his mind was not on the tasks at hand. Instead, it lingered on Lily, on the gentle way she had spoken about her work, the spark in her eyes, and the subtle way she seemed to find beauty and meaning in details others overlooked. He knew that he wanted to help her, yet he struggled with how to do so without overwhelming her or disrupting the authenticity of their growing bond. After his meetings, he decided to stop by the art studio, thinking it would be a casual visit, a way to check in on her, and perhaps share a small gesture of support. As Lily arranged her materials for the day, she noticed him entering, his presence immediately filling the room with a quiet energy. "Hi, Daniel," she said, smiling, though a hint of tension lingered in her voice. "Hello, Lily," he replied, offering a reassuring smile. For a moment, they moved around each other in a delicate dance of familiarity and caution, the air charged with unspoken feelings. Daniel gestured toward a small table near the window where sunlight streamed across her latest sketches. "I thought you might like a few new supplies," he said gently, revealing a neatly wrapped set of professional-grade pencils and brushes. Lily's eyes widened in surprise and gratitude, yet a flicker of frustration crossed her face. "I cannot accept these," she said softly, a hint of stubborn pride in her tone. Daniel smiled, understanding the delicate balance of offering support without undermining her independence. "I do not expect anything in return," he said, his voice calm but sincere. "Consider it a way to see your art flourish, nothing more." They settled near the window, sunlight highlighting the details of their surroundings, and began discussing her upcoming projects, potential exhibitions, and techniques that could enhance her work. As they spoke, Lily felt the tension within her slowly ease, replaced by a sense of collaboration and trust, the knowledge that Daniel's support was not a means to an end but a genuine gesture of encouragement. Daniel, for his part, was invigorated by her passion, inspired by her resilience, and increasingly determined to help her realize her artistic ambitions in a way that respected her autonomy and creativity. Hours passed unnoticed, filled with laughter, thoughtful discussion, and quiet observation of the city below, the rhythm of the day allowing both of them to become fully present in each other's company. When it was time for Lily to pack her sketches and prepare to leave, Daniel offered to accompany her, ensuring her safe journey back home and creating another shared moment that deepened their connection. Walking side by side through the city streets, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows and painting the buildings in warm hues, they spoke of future possibilities, tentative plans, and the unspoken understanding that their accidental meeting at the Gala had grown into something meaningful, a bond strengthened not just by chance, but by deliberate acts of kindness, attentiveness, and shared passion. Each step they took together reinforced a growing intimacy, a subtle but undeniable shift in their relationship, leaving both of them eager to see how the story unfolding between them would continue to develop. The evening arrived with a delicate chill in the air, and Lily found herself walking briskly through the city streets toward an art exhibition she had been invited to attend as a guest. The event was set in a spacious gallery downtown, walls painted in crisp white, showcasing contemporary works from local artists, the lighting carefully arranged to highlight each piece. Her heart beat faster with anticipation, both from excitement about the exhibition and the subtle hope of seeing Daniel again. As she entered the gallery, the murmur of conversation, the soft clinking of wine glasses, and the quiet hum of classical music filled the space, creating an atmosphere of sophistication and cultured energy. She navigated through the crowd, admiring paintings and sculptures, her eyes occasionally scanning for a familiar figure. Then, near a cluster of abstract canvases, she spotted him, Daniel Hayes, standing with a group of elegantly dressed guests, his posture confident, the polished demeanor of a chief executive officer in full view. Her breath caught, realizing that the casual, approachable man she had known in quieter settings was indeed the influential figure she had only partially glimpsed before. Daniel noticed her immediately, his expression softening, a flicker of recognition. Passing over his features, their eyes met across the room, and a subtle smile formed, bridging the space between the formality of the gala and the intimacy of their shared moments. Lily moved toward him cautiously, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement, aware that this was no longer a private encounter but a public revelation of sorts. As she approached, Daniel excused himself from his companions, greeting her with a warmth that contrasted with the formal environment. "Hi, Lily," he said, his voice carrying above the gentle murmur of the crowd, yet intimate enough to make her feel they were alone despite the presence of others. "Hello, Daniel," she replied, her words slightly breathless. They began walking together through the gallery, discussing the art and sharing observations about color, technique, and the emotions the pieces evoked. Lily could not help but notice the subtle glances from other guests. The realization that Daniel was the chief executive officer added a layer of tension and excitement to their interaction. She felt a mixture of admiration, surprise, and a hint of intimidation, yet the ease of their prior conversations smoothed over the initial formality. Daniel listened attentively as Lily shared her thoughts, her voice growing more confident with each observation, and he offered thoughtful insights, demonstrating both knowledge and genuine interest. At one point, a familiar sketchbook that she had carried slipped slightly from her tote bag, drawing his attention. Daniel bent to retrieve it and handed it back with a gentle smile. "Your dedication to your art is inspiring," he said quietly, ensuring that their private connection remained intact amid the public setting. The gallery seemed to fade around them as they focused on each other, exchanging ideas, stories, and laughter, the bond they had cultivated in quieter spaces now fully navigating the realm of social exposure. As they paused near a large canvas painted with bold strokes of blues and golds, Daniel leaned slightly closer, his voice soft, reminding her, "I am glad we found each other again." Lily met his gaze, her heart swelling with a combination of surprise, relief, and anticipation, understanding in that moment that the revelation of his true identity as a prominent CEO did not diminish the genuine connection they shared, but rather highlighted the serendipity of their accidental meetings and the unexpected unfolding of something far more meaningful than either had anticipated. The evening continued with subtle interactions, each glance and conversation reinforcing the unspoken realization that their paths had crossed for reasons beyond chance, setting the stage for deeper trust, understanding, and the possibility of love that neither had predicted but both now recognized. The night had fallen over the city, and the streets were awash with the glow of streetlights reflecting on the slick pavement from an earlier drizzle. Lily walked briskly back to her apartment, her mind still buzzing from the gallery encounter, the revelation of Daniel Hayes' true identity, and the way their conversation had felt effortless despite the social scrutiny surrounding them. She clutched her tote bag close, the sketchbook inside a comforting weight against her side, and wondered how the evening had shifted from a casual exhibition visit to a moment charged with revelation and unspoken emotions. Once inside, she set down her bag and leaned against the door for a moment, exhaling slowly as the city sounds softened behind her. She felt a mixture of exhilaration and unease, realizing that the reality of Daniel's status added both excitement and pressure to their interactions. At the same time, across town, Daniel returned to his penthouse, the lights of the skyline glittering like 1,000 tiny stars against the night sky. He poured himself a glass of water, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows as he reflected on the evening at the gallery, replaying the details of Lily's reactions, the way her eyes had lit up when discussing her sketches, and the subtle blend of pride and humility in her voice. He thought about the implications of his identity, the careful balancing act required to maintain the authenticity of their connection while being fully aware of the influence his position carried. The next day at the art studio, Lily faced a moment of tension. Her assistant had misplaced a series of canvases intended for an upcoming client presentation, causing a minor panic in the cramped space. She felt frustration rising, her voice tense as she directed the search, the pressure of deadlines and financial responsibilities pressing in. Daniel, arriving to check in on her progress, observed the situation quietly at first, noting the stress etched across her face and the determination with which she managed the chaos. He stepped forward gently, offering a calm hand and thoughtful suggestion for reorganizing the materials, allowing Lily to regain composure without diminishing her authority. Lily hesitated for a moment, her pride warring with relief, then accepted his assistance, recognizing the genuine intent behind the gesture. They worked together in a seamless rhythm, the combination of his calm decisiveness and her creativity resolving the challenge efficiently. Later, during a short break, they stepped outside into the soft afternoon light, walking along the narrow streets lined with small boutiques and cafes. Daniel spoke with quiet reflection, sharing insights about problem-solving under pressure, the balance between leadership and empathy, and the importance of supporting those whose talents might otherwise be overlooked. Lily listened intently, finding herself inspired not only by his perspective but also by the care with which he engaged her, validating her work without patronizing it. Their conversation flowed into more personal territory, both acknowledging the subtle shifts in their relationship, the way trust and comfort had grown alongside curiosity and admiration. By the time they returned to the studio, the light had softened into the gentle hues of evening, and the room felt calmer, more settled, a quiet testament to the way collaboration and mutual respect had eased tensions. As they prepared to leave, Daniel suggested accompanying Lily back to her apartment, ensuring she felt safe and providing another shared moment to reflect on the events of the day. Walking side by side, the city alive with evening energy, they spoke in quiet tones, planning for the week ahead and discussing ideas for her upcoming projects, each step reinforcing the growing bond between them. The accidental encounter at the gala, the gallery revelation, and the small acts of support and attentiveness now formed a pattern of trust and connection, leaving both Lily and Daniel acutely aware of the deepening emotions and the possibilities that lay ahead for their unfolding story. The following morning, the city was waking slowly, the sun casting long golden beams between the towering buildings and reflecting off the glass windows in a soft, almost ethereal glow. Lily sat at her small kitchen table, a cup of steaming coffee in hand, her sketchbook open before her, though her thoughts were far from her work. The events of the past week played over in her mind, the accidental seating at the gala, the rooftop garden conversation, the gallery revelation, and Daniel's quiet support at the studio. She felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty, realizing that her feelings for Daniel had grown stronger with each encounter, yet she was acutely aware of the difference in their worlds. She sipped her coffee slowly, watching the sunlight shift across the walls, and tried to imagine how their relationship could progress while maintaining her independence and the integrity of her own life. Across town, Daniel was preparing for a busy day at the office, but his mind kept returning to Lily. He paused at the window of his high-rise, looking out over the city that stretched endlessly in every direction, thinking about the small but significant gestures that had defined their interactions. He remembered the way she had laughed at a casual comment, the focused intensity with which she approached her art, and the subtle vulnerability that she showed only in moments of trust. He knew that he wanted to be part of her world in a way that respected her boundaries, yet he also longed to show her the depth of his interest and care. Later that afternoon, Lily decided to take a walk through a quieter neighborhood park, the sun dipping lower in the sky and casting a warm amber light over the pathways. She brought her sketchbook, using the time to clear her mind and reflect on the moments she had shared with Daniel. Each step was measured, her boots crunching softly against the gravel, and she found herself replaying conversations, the subtle hints of connection, and the ways in which his presence had become a comforting constant. Daniel, taking a break from his meetings, called her briefly, suggesting they meet at the same park bench where they had first shared sketches. The suggestion brought a surge of nervous anticipation to Lily's chest, but she accepted, feeling a mix of excitement and reassurance. When she arrived, Daniel was already there, sitting with a gentle smile as he watched the sun filter through the trees. They greeted each other quietly, settling into a rhythm of easy conversation, sharing thoughts about the day, their projects, and small personal reflections that continued to build trust and intimacy. As they spoke, the park around them seemed to fade into the background, leaving just the two of them, the warmth of late afternoon sunlight and the gentle rustle of leaves creating an almost private world. At one point, Daniel reached into his bag and produced a small envelope, handing it to Lily with a quiet explanation that it contained a few notes and ideas he thought might inspire her sketches. Lily accepted it with gratitude, feeling a renewed sense of connection and encouragement. They walked together along the winding paths, discussing the ideas, the gentle intimacy of their interaction punctuated by laughter, thoughtful comments, and occasional comfortable silences. The shared moments allowed both of them to reflect on their feelings, recognizing the depth of trust and curiosity that had grown naturally since the accidental meeting at the gala. As the sun began to set fully, casting long shadows and painting the sky in deep shades of orange and purple, they paused to take in the view of the city skyline, a quiet acknowledgement passing between them that their relationship had reached a point where the connection was undeniable. Yet the path forward remained both exciting and uncertain, a delicate balance of trust, admiration, and unspoken possibilities that promised more shared moments in the days to come. The weekend arrived with a gentle chill in the air, and Daniel had planned a special surprise for Lily. He had arranged a private exhibition at a small, elegantly lit gallery downtown, dedicating the event to her art, naming it the Art of Lily Carter. As she stepped into the gallery, her breath caught at the sight of the carefully arranged canvases lining the walls, each piece she had created displayed with precision, framed beautifully, and illuminated by soft, warm lighting that highlighted the subtle textures and colors she had worked so meticulously to perfect. The familiar hum of conversation was present, but it was subdued, almost reverential, allowing the artwork to speak for itself. Daniel stood near the center of the room, his hands folded lightly in front of him, watching her reaction with a quiet intensity that made her heart race. "Hi, Daniel," she whispered, barely able to form the words, her eyes scanning the gallery as if she could not believe what she was seeing. "Welcome," he said softly, stepping closer, his eyes reflecting both admiration and pride. "I wanted to create a space where your talent could be seen and celebrated, a place that shows not just your skill, but the passion behind every stroke." Lily moved slowly through the room, taking in each canvas, noticing details she had not seen before, the way the lighting brought depth to her colors, the subtle shadows, enhancing the emotion she had poured into each piece. She felt a rush of gratitude and awe, realizing that Daniel had gone to extraordinary lengths to honor her work, and in doing so, he had revealed the depth of his care for her. Daniel guided her to a corner where a single sketchbook lay open, one of her earliest pieces, the first drawing she had ever shared with him, now displayed as part of the exhibition. "I kept this," he said quietly, as if confessing a secret, "because it reminded me of where you started and how far you have come." Lily reached out, her fingers brushing the page, and felt a wave of emotion, her eyes glistening as she looked up at him. "This is incredible," she said, her voice trembling slightly, unable to fully articulate the mixture of surprise, joy, and appreciation she felt. They spent the evening moving through the gallery together, Daniel pointing out the ways in which the lighting and arrangement highlighted the narrative of her work, while Lily shared the stories behind each painting, revealing the personal significance and moments of inspiration that had fueled her creations. Guests arrived to admire the exhibition, yet for Lily and Daniel, the world seemed to narrow, the connection between them deepening as they shared the experience. At one point, Daniel took her hand gently, leading her to a quiet corner where the city lights could be seen through large windows, twinkling like stars. "I wanted to show you that your art matters, that your vision matters, and that you are seen," he said, his voice low and sincere. Lily looked into his eyes, feeling a surge of emotion, and realized in that moment that their journey together had brought her not only recognition for her talent, but a profound sense of being understood and valued. The gallery, the lights, the canvases, and the soft hum of the city beyond the windows all seemed to form a cocoon around them, a space where their shared history, the accidental meeting at the gala, and the trust and admiration that had grown over time culminated into a single, unforgettable experience. As the evening wound down, Daniel knelt slightly, producing a small, elegant ring from his pocket. Lily gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth in surprise. "Lily," he began, his voice steady but full of emotion, "I want to continue this story with you, to honor every step we have taken together and every moment yet to come. Will you marry me?" Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she nodded, unable to speak, the overwhelming joy, love, and sense of destiny washing over her. Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger, and they embraced, the city skyline and the warm gallery lights bearing witness to the beginning of the next chapter in their extraordinary, serendipitous journey. The morning after the gallery event, sunlight streamed through Lily's apartment windows, casting a warm glow across her collection of sketches and paintings. She sat at her kitchen table, the engagement ring on her finger catching the light, a reminder of the previous night's unforgettable moment. Her heart still raced with excitement and a quiet sense of contentment as she sipped her coffee, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here, from an accidental seating at a VIP gala to an unexpected connection that had grown into trust, friendship, and now love. Across town, Daniel moved through his morning routine with a rare calmness, the weight of his executive responsibilities momentarily softened by the thought of Lily and the life they were beginning to build together. He reviewed schedules and reports with careful efficiency, but his mind lingered on her smile, her laughter, and the shared moments that had deepened their bond over the past weeks. Later that afternoon, they met at a quiet park near her apartment, the trees swaying gently in the breeze and sunlight filtering through the leaves, casting a playful pattern across the pathways. They walked slowly, talking about small details of their day, future plans for her art, and ideas for collaborative projects that merge her creativity with his professional insights. Lily shared her hopes for opening a small gallery of her own, and Daniel offered guidance and encouragement, careful to respect her independence while demonstrating his unwavering support. Their conversation shifted seamlessly between serious topics and lighthearted laughter, the ease of their interaction reflecting a deep understanding and growing intimacy. As they reached a small overlook with a view of the city skyline, Daniel paused and turned to Lily, his expression earnest. "I want to be part of every step of your journey," he said softly, taking her hand in his. Lily's eyes shimmered with tears of happiness, and she squeezed his hand in return, feeling a sense of certainty and security that had eluded her for so long. They stood together, watching the sun descend behind the buildings, the sky painted in hues of gold and lavender, a perfect backdrop for a moment that felt suspended in time. The following weeks were filled with shared experiences that strengthened their bond. Daniel accompanied Lily to art shows, offered feedback on her sketches, and quietly celebrated her successes, while Lily brought warmth and genuine presence into his life, reminding him of the importance of connection and authenticity beyond the world of boardrooms and business deals. Friends and family were gradually introduced into their lives, each meeting reinforcing the compatibility and mutual respect that had developed between them. Eventually, the day arrived for a small, intimate ceremony at the gallery where Lily's art had first been showcased for the public. The walls were adorned with her paintings, the space illuminated by soft overhead lights, and close friends and family gathered to witness their union. Daniel waited at the front, a nervous but radiant smile on his face as Lily entered, her dress simple yet elegant, a perfect reflection of her personality and artistry. As she approached, their eyes met, and a calm, understanding passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of the journey, the obstacles, and the serendipitous moments that had led them here. Vows were exchanged with heartfelt sincerity, each word a promise of support, love, and partnership, acknowledging both their shared future and the individual strengths they brought to it. When the ceremony concluded, they walked hand in hand through the gallery, surrounded by the people who had celebrated their growth and the space that had witnessed the beginnings of their story. The evening ended with quiet smiles, gentle laughter, and the comforting knowledge that the accidental meeting at a gala had transformed into a lifetime of shared moments, love, and a partnership built on trust, respect, and the undeniable magic of fate bringing two people together.